So good morning everyone, my name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Drishti IAS. In this live session we will be talking about a few news articles from Indian Express. So we'll go through some 3 or 4 articles and that could be important for your prelims as well as mains. But we will focus on the prelims as of now because there is very less time left and we have to cover these newspaper etc. We will make sure that in the upcoming days our focus will be prelims oriented. We will discuss the articles which are having nature of mains, but the thing is we will focus on the prelims oriented articles. Now let's start with the practice question and then we will move towards these 3 articles, that is to do marriages require registering. Okay, so there is this case in front of Supreme Court wherein a couple has gone to the Supreme Court and asked for a divorce. In that particular case, Supreme Court has said certain things about the registration of marriage, solemnization of the marriage, and how these 2 things are different. Okay, so we will see why it is different and do we need to be registered, it is a mandatory provision or not. Okay, then India Nepal border issues, like 3 to 4 days back we have talked about India and Nepal border issues, and there was this map, or you can say there is the currency note of 100 rupees on which they have published their new map, and in which they have actually taken some areas from India as well. Now that is the concern, we will talk about that. We will talk about the history as well. Okay, then what are non-market economies? With respect to USA and Vietnam, this particular term non-market economies or the market economies has been in news, and we will see what is market economies, what are non-market economies, and how that can be important for your prelims. Okay, now from around the world there will be these articles which we have already discussed over here. These 2 are from your around the world, and then there will be a practice question for you for your own read. There won't be any article today. Okay, so this is your front page, and there was this forest fire in Uttarakhand. We have discussed what are forest fires, what can be the reasons, what are the areas where forest fires are prominent. So we will not repeat that. Okay, otherwise also in this article that is not basically given, they have talked about the specific fire in Uttarakhand. Okay, so please note that what are the reasons of forest fire, which are the areas which are more prominent, or you can say prone to the forest fires, and in which months this is more prominent. Okay, so now moving further, for our Indore branch ISGS foundation courses, admissions are open for Hindi medium as well as English medium. This will be the first batch in Indore branch, and when we are talking about this particular batch, it will be an offline batch with free online facilities. Okay, so go ahead, book your seats. Okay, and for more information you can call on this number, that is 9654770440. Okay, now coming to the practice question which was given to you in the previous lecture. Which of the below given countries are part of Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, that is RCEP? When we are talking about RCEP, India is not a member. Okay, that is the important catch over here. When these negotiations are going on, then India was a part of that negotiation, but because of our domestic issues, or you can say domestic concern, we did not choose to be a member of RCEP. Okay, so right now RCEP has 15 members. There are 10 ASEAN countries. Okay, and along with them there are 5 ASEAN free trade agreement countries. Okay, so these are free trade agreement partner countries, these are also part of this, and these 5 countries include your Australia, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, as well as Australia, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and one more country is there, basically China. Yeah, sorry, how can I miss that? China. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So these are the countries 1, 2, 4 and 6. Okay, so C would be your right answer, that is 1, 2, 4, 6. Australia, Japan, China, South Korea and New Zealand. New Zealand is not given over here. India is not a member, Russia is not a member. Okay, this is the clue which you can get. Okay, if you know that India is not a member, you can eliminate the first one. If you know that Russia is not a member, you can eliminate these 2. Okay, so basically option C is your right answer. Okay, here you can go through this particular map over here. There are these 10 ASEAN countries which are given over here: Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Philippines and Brunei. These are basically your you can say ASEAN countries, and these are 5 partners which are given in this particular color, that is China, Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so this is regional comprehensive economic partnership. Okay, I hope this is clear. Here it is mentioned that India is not a member. Please remember that India is not a member, Russia is not a member. Now moving further and start with the first article. Do marriages need to be registered? What happens if they are not registered or registered? Okay. Now when we are talking about marriages in India, there are various ways. First is you can go with your personal laws, okay, customs. So when we are talking about Hindus, we have Saptapati, Saans Fere, etc. When we are talking about Muslim personal laws, there is this nikah in presence of Qazi and there will be witnesses, okay. When we are talking about the Christians, the ceremony happens inside the church, okay. And when we are talking about Sikhs, there is this rasam of Anantara in the Gurdwara, okay. So all these things are basically related to your personal laws. When we are talking about the solemnization of the marriage, okay, that is basically you can say getting into a marriage, getting into a wedlock, that is solemnization. So when we are talking about the solemnization, there are particular aspects like these personal laws. If we are going for the Hindu Marriage Act, then since it is a personal law, so you have to be solemnizing your marriage with a custom, okay, and that custom has to be followed. When we are talking about the Muslim law, then Muslim law calls for nikah, so you have to follow that particular procedure and you have to sign a nikah nama in the presence of Qazi and there will be other witnesses. So all these activities has to happen, then only your marriage will be solemnized. Then there is another way, that is basically your court marriage or registered marriage. In that also, when we are talking about, the registration is different and solemnization is different. Solemnization in court marriage is done in front of the magistrate, okay. Then magistrate will actually give you a certificate that you are married and then you have to register it, okay. No doubt these processes are taken place at the one place, but again solemnization of the marriage is different from the registration of marriage. Now solemnization marriage is a compulsory component when we are talking about the marriages, but registration is not very mandatory, because when we are talking about the registration, we have a centralized law with respect to the marriage, deaths and the birth registration. There are certain states which calls for a mandatory registration of marriage, like Karnataka and Delhi, but there are states where it is not mandatory. So basically when we are talking about marriages, the solemnization of marriage is essential component. And when we are talking about the personal laws, so whatever is given in your personal law, that custom, that essential practice has to be followed, then only your marriage will be valid, okay. Now recently what happens in Supreme Court, there was this particular case wherein a couple goes to court and asks for a divorce, okay. They have registered their marriage, but the thing is they have never gone for solemnization of the marriage, they have never gone to a temple, or they have never gone for the Saptapati or the Saans Fere. Now the court says that since you have not solemnized your marriage, you don't need a divorce, okay. The registration which you have gone for, that is collaborative evidence, but not an evidence in itself, okay. So for evidence, or you can say for the solemnization of marriage, you need to produce certain documents like the picture of that particular ceremony, or some kind of witnesses of that particular ceremony. But since you don't have you did not perform that Saptapati, that means that your marriage was never there, and that is why divorce cannot be given. Now they have registered their marriage under the Hindu Marriage Act, and Hindu Marriage Act, there is this section 7 which says that there has to be a ceremony called Saptapati, okay. And since that was not there, that is why Supreme Court said that you don't need a divorce, because there was no marriage, okay. Now coming to the article here, I have actually explained you all now, but we will see. Hindu couple who have appeared before the court, they were never acquired the status of husband and wife, as they registered their marriage under the Hindu Marriage Act before performing a wedding ritual, okay. So they have registered their marriage under Hindu Marriage Act, but the thing is they did not perform the wedding rituals like Saptapati, okay. Now they have filed the divorce case and need not to get a divorce because they were not married in the first place, because Hindu Marriage Act clearly says that, according to section 7, that you have to go for Saptapati, and then if you are going for those that particular ceremony of Saptapati or the Saans Fere, then only your marriage is solemnized, okay. Because when we are talking about the Hindu marriages and the Christian marriages, these marriages are sacrosanct, okay. They are not like a contract like it was in Muslim marriages. Muslim marriages, nikah nama is basically a contract, okay, wherein terms and condition of marriage are given over there, the mahar rakam is given over there. So that is basically a contract. But when we are talking about the Hindu marriages and the Christian marriages, these marriages are basically sacrosanct in nature, okay. So you have to perform this ceremony, then only your solemnization can be valid, and then only your marriage can be valid. So that is written in the section 7 of the Hindu Marriage Act, okay. here you can say section 7 of the Hindu Marriage Act codifies these requirement and the names Saptapati as an essential ritual. Since it is an essential ritual, then it has to be followed. Okay. For Christians, a ceremony in church based on local customs. When we are talking about the Christians, there are certain local customs. Accordingly, you have to perform the marriage. When we are talking about Western countries, there is another system. When we are talking about our Indian countries, or you can say Indian states like Tamil Nadu, etc. So there is this practice called Thalikattu. Okay, or you can say what you have to do is you have to tie a pendant, okay, in the neck of the woman over there. So that is basically a custom which has to be followed in Tamil Nadu. So there are various regional customs. When we are talking about Kerala, that is different. When we are talking about the northeastern region of India, that is different. But again, for every such marriage, there is a local custom, and that local custom has to be followed. Okay, so for the Christian is same. When we are talking about the Muslim laws, okay, it is a contractual obligation. As I told you, it is a contract between the two parties. Okay, so there has to be a nikahnama. Okay, signing a nikahnama in presence of witnesses and a kaji. Okay, so basically the consent of both parties is necessary over there. Nikahnama is giving basically the consent. Also, there has to be a vocal consent, that is that kubul hai part has to be there, okay, in front of the witnesses. Okay, so these are for the Muslim marriage. So these are certain, you can say, essential practices which should be there for the solemnization of the marriage. Here you can say solemnizing a marriage is basically refers to a performance of an official marriage ceremony with appropriate rituals. Okay. In India, marriage is largely governed by the gamut of personal laws. As I told you, there are personal laws when we are talking about Hindus. When we are talking about Muslims, there are personal laws and a special marriage act. Okay. When we are talking about the Special Marriage Act, these are basically your court marriages. In front of the magistrate, you have to perform, or you can say solemnize the marriage. Okay. Now, though it is codified, the personal laws are essential practices ordained by the religion and the customs, having its own set of requirements for a marriage, and marriage is valid when these requirements are met. Okay, when we are talking about Hindus and Christians, as I told you, this is basically your sacrosanct. Okay, and the practice of Kanyadan and Saptapadi are basically necessary, which is given over here. Okay, however problematic but necessary in the law. Okay. Now, what are the registered marriage? Okay, so I have told you that under the Special Marriage Act, you have to go to a court, and then where you have to perform that solemnization of marriage on the documents over there, and that solemnization, after the solemnization, there will be a registration. When we are talking about the other marriages like which has happened in the Hindu Marriage Act or the Muslim personal laws, so after that, once you solemnize your marriage, you have to go to authority and you can get your marriage registered. Okay, so here you can say the registration of a marriage after it is solemnized as per the ritual is different from the registered marriage. Okay, now registered marriage is something that is called court marriage in front of the magistrate under the Special Marriage Act. So that is registered marriage, and when we are talking about registration of marriage, so that is altogether a different thing. That is basically when we are talking about this registered marriage, that is a way of solemnizing of marriage. Okay, that is a legal way of solemnizing of marriage outside your personal laws. Okay. Now, solemnization in court, that is we have discussed. However, marriages under personal laws become valid only after the performance of the ritual prescribed by the religion. A marriage without any ritual is valid under SMAs. Okay, so if you are going for the marriage under Special Marriage Act, even if you are Hindus, okay, but if you are marrying under Special Marriage Act, that means that you can avoid the rituals as well. Okay. Now, Section 8 of the Hindu Marriage Act gives power to the state to register a marriage solemnized as per the requirement of the Section 7. Now, Section 7 is basically the Kanyadan and the Saptapadi. Okay, so or you can say any kind of custom which has to be followed, and Section 8 is saying that once that solemnization has happened, you can go for the registration. Okay. So, Indian Christian Marriage Act is there, okay, that is for the solemnization of the marriage and registration for that marriage. And then for Muslims, a nikahnama is issued by the qazis outside the term of marriage. However, you can say you can go for the registration of such marriages, but and when we are talking about our Hindu practices, so mostly these things are happening inside the as per the family functions or maybe inside the temple. So a priest is there to perform the ceremony, but then they are not giving any kind of certificate that the ceremony itself is a certificate for you. Okay. Now, what if a marriage is not registered? So it's okay if a marriage is not registered, but the thing is, for your legal, you can say, status, or you can say for your, some benefits which are attached to the, attached to spouses, okay, for that the registration of marriage is mandatory, because government will ask for a proof, and that particular thing can be acting as a proof, okay. In the court of law, whenever there is a marriage which is questioned, okay, in that particular point of time, your registration or you can say the certificate of marriage will not be of any use until unless it is a special marriage act, okay, because the saptupati and the local customs are necessary. So you have to prove that those customs has been there while you were getting married, okay. So that proof is essential for that, and the registration of marriage is a collaborative evidence, okay. Collaborative evidence is meant to support the evidence you have given earlier, okay. So basically here, if we are talking about these marriages, there is a central registration, that is Birth, Death and Marriage Registration Act 1886, under which there is a robust mechanism for the birth and death registrations, but for the marriage there is not much given over there. But if you are going to the authorities, you are asking for the registration of marriage, there you can get it. And every state has their own laws. When we are talking about Delhi and Karnataka, these are mandatory steps, okay. Registration is mandatory, and there are certain states where registration is not mandatory, like Rajasthan, okay. Now certificate of marriage registration is useful for various official purposes like spousal visas, joint medical insurance, etc. However, not registering a marriage cannot be a sole ground to declare it invalid, okay. If you have not registered a marriage, that does not mean that your marriage did not happen, okay. So like, let's say you married under Hindu Marriage Act, and then you went to, you can say, court, and court said that where is your certificate? You said I don't have a certificate. So court cannot say that if you don't have a certificate that your marriage is invalid, because if you have performed the saptapati and you have evidence of that particular custom has been performed, then your marriage is valid, either you have this registered certificate or not, okay. Now coming to the next part over here. When the validity of marriage is contested, whenever there are issues of bigamy, whenever there are issues related to inheritance, okay, in such cases there is this people are going for the contesting the validity of a marriage. Like, let's say there is a person who has married twice, okay. So in that case, if he wants to be out of the clutches of the law, or he does not want to go to the jail, then he has to prove that the first marriage was valid and second marriage was not a marriage, okay. So let's say if there is a person who has a wife, legally wedded wife, like you can say there was saptapati, there was everything which has been done by the procedure, and then he goes to another woman and that woman is living with him, okay. But they have actually they might have gone for the registration of the marriage as well, but the thing is he has not performed you can say saptapati, okay, and he has registered the marriage under Hindu Marriage Act. In that case, his first marriage is valid, second is not a valid marriage, or you can say a void marriage. In that case, that will not be considered as a bigamy, okay. So ultimately, even in that case, a person has two wives, okay, de facto he has two wives, but the thing is he will not be arrested under the allegations of bigamy, okay. So that is the law. So basically he has to prove that the second marriage is a void marriage, it is not a marriage at all, okay. Similarly, in the cases of inheritance, if you don't want to give someone you can say part of your property, in that case also you have to prove that that marriage was invalid, okay. But the thing is, if you have performed the ceremony, if you have gone for the registration, not necessarily for the registration, but if you have performed the ceremony and the other party is able to produce evidence of such things, then your marriage will be considered valid, okay. So that is about this particular article. We have discussed it in length and breadth. So you know that there are 2-3 ways in India how you can get married. That is, one is your personal laws, second is your Special Marriage Act, okay. So in Special Marriage Act, that is a registered marriage, okay, that is different from registration of marriage, okay. And in Hindu Marriage Act, or you can say any kind of personal laws, or through personal laws if you are marrying, so you can go for the marriage, and the essential part of that particular you can say customs has to be performed, okay. I hope that is clear. Now we can move further to the next article. Hold on. Okay. India-Nepal border issues. See, we have talked about 3 areas, that is Lipu Lake, Kala Pani, Limpiathura, okay. these are the areas which are in Uttarakhand, and Nepal is contesting that these are part of their territory. India is very sure about it. These are our territory, and this is clear. There is no question in that. Though to resolve their concern with respect to this particular boundary issue, we have said that we will follow the diplomacy channels, okay, diplomatic channels. But Nepal recently, what they did, that in 2020 there was this parliamentary new map which has been when Mr. Oli was prime minister over here, they have come up with the new maps at that point of time, but they have not done very much about it. And with those new maps, basically at that point of time there was this communist government and they were close to China, okay. And in 2015 there was this blockade which has happened, okay. Because of that particular blockade, after 2015 there was this particular blockade has happened, that is Madhesi related issue was happening over there. So because of which Nepal has looked towards China, and when the government changed in 2018 somewhere around, at that point of time Mr. Oli became the prime minister of Nepal, and he has this inclination towards China. They have signed various infrastructure projects so that they don't have to depend on India, okay. At that point of time they have come up with the new territorial map of Nepal, and in those maps they have shown these three territories which are basically Limpiadhura, Kalapani and Lipu Lake as their part of the territory, which are actually our side, okay. So they are in Uttarakhand. That is how this issue starts, and now this issue is again in the news because they have gone for the issuance of a new currency note on which they have actually put a map, and that map includes Limpiadhura, Kalapani and Lipu Lake as the territory of Nepal. Now that is why this issue was in news, and our external affairs minister has said that it is you can say kind of a provocative act, and it should whatever they do on the notes etc., but the ground situation will not change, okay. So let's see what is the issue over here. So Nepal's cabinet, they have actually issued a map on the 100 rupees note, currency note, okay, showing our territory as theirs, okay. So it is basically a provocating act, and Jaishankar has said that unilateral measure by the Kathmandu would not change the reality on the ground, okay. So that is the stand of our embassy, okay, or our ministry. This is an area of nearly 372 square kilometer. If you remember, it's okay, otherwise it's not very much necessary, but for your mains, if you remember and write this number, that can be important for you, okay. Now Limpiadhura, Lipu Lake, Kalapani at the India-Nepal tri-junction in the Uttarakhand, okay. This is a tri-junction because there is a territory of China, then India and Nepal, okay. So that is why it is a tri-junction over here, okay. So in the Pithoragarh district, now remember this Pithoragarh district as well, okay. There are some historical and evidences, and the you can say when we are talking about anything related to borders, okay, the legacy has been given by the Britishers, okay. Whenever you go, if there is a border issue, be it Ireland, okay, Northern Ireland issue, these all partitions were done by Britishers, okay, and that is why these issues are there, okay, because they did not understand the local geography, local customs or local communities living over there, and they have just done it, okay. Now coming to this particular part, as I told you, Nepal's parliament 4 years ago in 2020, they has adopted a new map, okay, that boundary issues examined and the throughout diplomatic channels. At that particular point of time, our prime minister and our side of government has said that we will examine the matter through the diplomatic channels, okay. But then there was this visits etc., which has happened, and in that this particular issue was not resolved, okay. So they are now doing this certain things. Discussion about our boundary matters are ongoing through the established platforms, but it would appear that Kathmandu is not happy with the pace and the urgency of the process, okay. So when we are talking about this particular act which has happened, there is this skepticism, or you can say some kind of criticism in the Nepal itself. There are certain sections of the Nepal which are saying that this was not a right step to do as of now, okay. Now genesis of the issue, you must have heard about this Treaty of Sugauli, okay. Now there was this war which has happened, you can say Anglo-Nepalese war, okay. So in 1814 to 16 there was this war, and then they have come up with the Treaty of Sugauli, and at that point of time they have done these you can say changes in the boundary. You don't have to remember all these things, what has happened, how has happened, all these things are for your mains. Right now I don't want to waste your time with that. If you have any kind of interest, you can go through this particular paragraph, or I can read it for you, so that would be better. Okay, so Treaty of Sugauli, Anglo-Nepalese War of 1814 to 16 resulted in the Nepal losing chunk of its territory to the East India Company. That was something static which we have already seen. Article 5 of the treaty took away the jurisdiction of Nepal's ruler over the land to the east of the Kali River. Now, Kali River is the issue basically because that east of the Kali River, there was this river. They have said that everything east of the Kali River is with British India, okay, and then other part is with the Nepal. Now the thing is, recently in the last few decades, the Kali River has changed their course. Now river has changed the course, and now since they are saying that treaty is saying that that is the river is the boundary. So now that boundary has changed, and that is why these areas are ours. Now the thing is, whenever there is a boundary dispute, that is not based on the rivers. The thing is, at that point of time, they have said that river is the boundary, but the villages which are over there, that was part of India. Now once that they were part of India, now they are saying that that is part of Nepal. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, now coming to the next part over here, that is with respect to Kali River. Then again there was another maps which has been, you can say, released, British Surveyor General of India in 1819, 1821, 1827, 1856. There were various maps which has been released at over time, okay, that showed the Kali River as originating from the Limpiadhura, okay, and in 1879 there was another map, okay, which named the river as Kuti Yangti River. Okay, so they named that particular river as Kuti Yangti River. Okay, in the next time when the you can say these maps were released in 1920-21, okay, they retained the name Kuti Yangti but identified the different Kali River. Now in 1879 when they come up with the map, they renamed Kali as the Kuti Yangti. But in the 1920-21 when they come up with another map, they have differentiated between two rivers. Okay, they said that these two rivers are different. Okay, now that is why, because since you do not know the geography of that particular region, you have done these blunders. Okay, so that has happened at that point of time. Now the last map issued by the British before they left in India, that is 1947, that shows the initial position of the Kali River originating in the Limpiadhura. As per that, the territory is ours. Okay, so then there was this, some villages are given, that is not important for us. Okay, Nepal government census until 1962, okay, land revenue to the government. When we are talking about these particular areas, these areas are getting these land revenues in the Kathmandu, etc. Here you can say, again I will read it for you. According to the this particular villages in this area, Gunji, Nabi, Kuti, Kalapani, also known as the Tulsi Nurang and Nabidang, were covered by the Nepalese government census until 1962. The people paid the land revenue to the government in Kathmandu. However, the situation changed after the war between India China that year. In 1962 there was this particular war. After that there was this situation which has changed. But the thing is, the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru at that point of time approached the Maharaja, or you can say the King of Nepal at that point of time, and they have said that they will actually they do not have any kind of intention, okay, to enter into the Nepal's territory. Okay, so Nepal asking for the permission to use Kalapani, which was strategically located at the tri-junction of the base of the Indian Army. In 1962 we have asked for the our Prime Minister has asked for the you can say permission to use the Kalapani area. Okay, then King has gifted this area to India, and issue was never resolved. Okay, at that point of time this area was given to the India. Okay, India Nepal talks has been going on for various times at the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and when we are talking about the Mr. Gujral's regime, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Narendra Modi's time, there was this talks which has been going on. Okay, now frictions in the bilateral ties, as I told you, from this particular time 2005 to 2014 there were cordial relations. In 2015 Nepal was going for making of their new constitution, and there is this community that is called Madheshis. Okay, when we are talking about Nepal, so here you can see the map of Nepal, and this is the Tarai region. Okay, so this is the Tarai region. In this Tarai region basically there is this community that is called Madheshi. these Madheshi communities are having ethnical, ethnic affinity with the Indian territories. Like people living across the border, they are having some kind of cultural affinity with each other. So they have this culture, or you can say the practices which are identifying more with the Indians. Okay. So these are kind of they identify as themselves, or you can say they connect themselves with our our side of the territory. So these people were not given the proper representation, and because of which there was this particular, you can say some kind of resentment within the Madheshi community at that point of time in 2015. Then when there was this new constitution, at that point of time our government, or you can say Indian government, has said that the Nepal government can delay the process so that their issues can be resolved. Okay. But then that did not happen, and because of which what happened, that there was this blockade, road blockade has happened. When we are talking about Nepal, Nepal is a landlocked country. All of their trade are done through Indian territories. Okay, so when there was this blockade, because of which Nepalis were kind of having a resentment against India, so they at that point of time gone for the building better relation with the China. Okay. So they thought that if not from the Indian territory, we will do trade with the Chinese territory, but that was having some kind of geographical issues, constraint, and that is why they could not go for that particular thing. But again, after some time, regime changes, and then again our ties are trying to be normal. But recently, that there is a government, that is a coalition government in Nepal, and Mr. Oli is part of the government at that in the Nepalese government, and he has taken this step after joining the, you can say, government, or within the months he has gone for this particular incident, which is printing the maps of the currency, maps on the currency note. Okay, so that is basically your bilateral ties over here. Here you can say a goodwill of 2005 to 14 period, when the Indian mediated the transition of Hindu kingdom into a secular federal republic. Okay, one more thing over here. In this particular point of time, 2005 to 14, there was this transition of the polity which is happening in the Nepal. Nepal, as I told you, that was a Hindu kingdom earlier. Okay, so they have actually, from the kingdom, they have converted into a secular country. At that point of time, India has helped them a lot. Okay, so that was the time when we had good relations, we had affinity with Nepal at that point of time. And after 2015, there was this Madheshi issues, the road blockade, etc. Then these tensions started happening at that point of time. Okay, so that is about this particular thing. And this is the time, 2020 was the time when they have come up with the new maps in the regime of Mr. Oli. Okay, now he is part of the government in 2024 again, and he has come up with the map on the currency note of 100 rupees. Okay, so that is the issue here. When we are talking about this particular paragraph which we have read over here, that when it was the territory of India, when it was not, all these things are not important for us. Only thing is that there is a contested area, that is Limpiadhura, Kalapani, Lipule. Other than that, there is one more area which I will tell you, that is Susta. Okay, but again, here you can see the map. This is Nepal, and we are having this border with Uttarakhand, then Uttar Pradesh, then here we have Bihar, then we have Sikkim. Okay, so these are the 4 states of India which are forming boundaries with Nepal. So please remember that, they can ask you this. Other than that, we have talked about this particular tri-junction over here. When we are talking about, so here you can say this is the basically the tri-junction, that is your, this is China, this is Uttarakhand, this is Nepal. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now coming to the point of conflict, here you can see these are the point of conflict. Here there is this river, that is the Kali river, which was supposed to be over here. Okay, so please remember that the river name is Kali, and then I have told you this name which is that is Kutti Yangti. Okay, so please remember this name as well, because there are chances that they might ask you the name of the river, that is Kutti Yangti. Okay, please remember that. Okay, now Kalapani, Limpiadhura and Lipulek, here you can see that this is your Lipulek pass, then this is Kalapani area, and this is Limpiadhura. Okay, and this is the stretch of 372 square kilometers which is contested. Other than that, there is one part in Bihar, that is here you can say, that is Susta. Okay, Susta is also a river which is a tributary of basically Gandak river. So please remember that, that is Gandak on which because of the river course of the Gandak, that particular issue was in again that particular issue has arisen. That issue was old, that is the relatively a new issue. Okay. Now moving further to the next article. Here it is saying why Vietnam wants us to change its non-market economy, want US to change its non-market economy status. Okay. When we are talking about Vietnam, Vietnam is a emerging economy, or you can say economy wherein there are certain, you can say earlier it was a closed kind of economy, and it has the you can say affinity towards the socialism. Okay. So because of which USA has given the status of non-market economy. When they give this status to a particular country, they are actually, what they are doing is they are increasing the import duties. Okay. So they are increasing duties on the export from such you can say countries, okay, which are basically coming to their country. Okay. So basically that is you can say concept which is followed in USA. Okay. There is this non-market economies, and then there is this market economies. When we are talking about these non-market economies, there are two more countries which are I guess there are more countries which are all part of this. Okay. Nearly 12 countries are there. Okay. And in those 12 countries, Russia and China are also included. Okay. Vietnam is also there. Other than that, there were other 9 countries which is not important for us. Okay. Now coming to the article, Vietnam has been pushing the Biden administration to change the non-market economy classification to the market economy to avoid the high taxes imposed by the United States on the goods imported from the Southeast Asian countries. Okay. Now the list of non-market economies, there is a list of non-market economy which is given by the US government. There are 12 countries including Russia and China. US Department of Commerce is basically authority which is reviewing this particular list. Okay. Now this US Department of Commerce is also reviewing the Vietnam's status. Okay. So this is currently in under the review. Now what are non-market economy? So here you can say if a country is there are certain conditions. If there is these conditions which are prevailing in that country, then you can say that it is a non-market economy. So if we say that if country's currency is convertible, if the currency is convertible, okay, that is first condition. Second is that wages in the country that particular like Vietnam, if we are talking about, if the wages are determined by the labors and the management. Okay. So that is second thing. Third thing is that there is a joint venture, or you can say the forest investments, foreign direct investments are allowed. Okay. So here you can say these are the, you can say if the country's currency is convertible, if wages are determined by the free bargaining between labor and management, if the joint venture and the other foreign investment are allowed, whether the means of production are owned by state or not, if the state control the allocation of the resources and the prices and output decisions, etc., and human rights. So basically these are certain criteria on which they will decide. Okay. First is that your currency is convertible or not. Whatever wages are set, that are set with the consensus of the laborers and the other stakeholders, okay, or the market, and if the joint ventures and the foreign investments is allowed in that particular country or not. Okay. And means of productions are controlled by state or not. Okay. When we are talking about India as well, before 1990 or our economic reforms, so India has this particular thing. We did not have the convertibility, currency convertibility. We did not have much of the intermingle, or you can say complex interference with the other economies. We were trying to look inward. Okay. But then we have gone for the BOP crisis, and then we have to open our economy. Right now something like that is happening in the Vietnam as well. Okay. Now here you can say the non-market economy labels allow the USA to import anti-dumping duties on the goods imported from the designated countries. Why anti-dumping? Now countries of Southeast Asia, or when we are talking about these countries, or you can say India, etc., labor is quite cheap over here. Okay. And if your labor wages are not decided freely, or not decided with the consensus with the laborers, then there are chances that these wages would be very low. Okay. Since wages are low, that means that your production cost is low, and when your production cost is low, and to increase your, you can say, exports, what you are doing is that you are trying to make your exports competitive, what you are trying to do is that you are giving subsidies. Now you are giving subsidies. So let's say a same product which in United States that is manufactured at the cost of, let's say, $100. Okay, because labor cost is high over there and subsidies are not provided in the developed countries, because of which the production cost in USA is $100 and same production cost in Vietnam is, let's say, somewhere around $70 okay, so that is in Vietnam. Now that product Vietnam is sending to USA in $70 or $80, obviously the domestic market will be occupied by this particular product. To avoid that, what they are doing is they are going for the anti-dumping duties. They will add a tax or duty on this particular thing. Let's say they will add a duty of nearly $30. Okay, so that will be $110 and ultimately USA's domestic product will be cheap over there. Okay, so this is certain you can say economical term when we are talking about the anti-dumping, that is done when you are trying to avoid or the dumping of cheap imported goods. Okay, China has tendency to do that. Okay, when we are talking about, so basically you are protecting your own domestic industry over there. Okay, so here you can say allows the US to impose anti-dumping duties on goods imported from the designated countries when a country's export prices are intentionally set below the domestic prices. As again, the prices are set below the domestic prices, so that can be competitive in that particular market, and that is why these import will increase. Okay, so set below the domestic prices, thereby inflicting harm to the domestic industry in the importing country. Okay, now compensate for the difference between the imported goods and the exported price. As I told you, the extra duty of rupees 30, which will $30 which will be imposed by the USA, that is basically trying to, you can say, compensate for the or you can say compensate for the whatever difference is there in the domestic price and the imported price. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now again, here you can say the level of anti-dumping duties is determined by the relying on the third country, say Bangladesh. So they will see that in Bangladesh what is the cost of production of that particular item. Okay, if the cost of production in Bangladesh is around somewhere around let's say $90 or you can say $95, and they are going for the $70, so they will see that there is this setback, or you can say there is this intentional subsidies are given, or intentionally these prices are kept low. So for deciding that how much anti-dumping duty has to be imposed on that particular country, so you will take a reference of the third party or third country in that particular area, so that you will realize that what is the cost of production in that particular area. Okay, so when we are talking about the Southeast Asian countries, so basically they will in the case of Vietnam, they might go for the prices in checking the prices in Bangladesh as well. Okay, now why does the Vietnam want this market economy status? Okay, so when we are talking about this market economy status, these duties, these anti-dumping duties will be removed. So Vietnam wants that these anti-dumping duties should be removed so that they can do you can say trade with USA. Okay, their exports can be more competitive over there. Okay, and why they are saying that? They have said that we have gone for the economic reforms. Okay, we have gone for the economic reforms. We have met number of criteria which are given over here. Okay, which we have already discussed. Okay, so they are saying that we are allowing the foreign investment now. We are determining the wages by free negotiation between the workers and management. So basically they are saying that we have fulfilled these conditions, many of these conditions, so we can get rid of these anti-dumping duties by getting this status of market economies. Okay, so what are the challenges? Now challenge is that when we are talking about the domestic industry of USA, in USA when we are talking about the iron and steel industry, steel manufacturers and the shrimp producers, so these are two industries which are having some kind of reservations. Okay, so they are basically going for the not to change the status of Vietnam, citing that the country's restriction and the land ownership. Okay, they are saying that there is this restrictions, which are various restrictions on the labor related issues in the country, and there is this land ownership related issues in the country, and that is why they are saying that because of which their costs will be low and ultimately that will harm the domestic industry. Okay, change in Vietnam's status would aid Chinese state firms that have invested in heavily in the Vietnam. Now that is another thing. there is this issue with USA and China. Okay, these anti-dumping related duties, etc. As I told you, these are also non-market economy. Okay, now if they are giving this particular Vietnam a market economy status, so the thing is, China will route their can say trade practices from Vietnam. They will send goods to the Vietnam, or they will install a manufacturing industry in the Vietnam, and then they will route it to USA. Okay, so these origin related issues can be there. Okay, and or otherwise you can say that China can do the trade via Vietnam. Okay, otherwise also China has various investments which are already present in the Vietnam. So ultimately US market will be indirectly open for China via this particular you can say modus operandi. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now we can move further. Disclose all side effects in the package. Stopped making Covishield in 2021. That is what Serum Institute of India has said. Actually, when we are talking about the Covishield, the production of the Covishield was given to Serum Institute in Pune. Okay, and the vaccine was developed by AstraZeneca. So they are actually withdrawing the licenses so that there is no further production of that. Recently, 2-3 days back, we have talked about the side effects of the Covishield vaccine, because of which there are issues related to blood clotting, etc. that are happening. Okay, then there is this thrombosis with the thrombocytopenia syndrome. Thrombosis with the thrombocytopenia syndrome, that is basically the side effect of this Covishield vaccine. No doubt the occurrence is very low, but again that is one of the side effects which is coming forward at that point of time when we are talking about the vaccines administration. Within the month of time, there were certain cases which has been seen, and the manufacturer of the vaccines has actually told the side effects of the this particular vaccine. They have said that those people who are having any kind of previous condition with respect to the blood clotting, or if someone is somehow if they are vulnerable to this TTS, other than that women of particular age were quite when we are talking about the burden of this particular disease, these women are quite vulnerable to this disease. So Covishield has said that these people should not go for the vaccine, that is Covishield. Okay, so while SSI did not include warning regarding the TTS in the second half of actually when we are talking about this SII, Serum Institute of India, they actually have gone for the giving a warning in the second phase in 2021. Okay, stating the people with a history of clotting and autoimmune disorders to refrain from going for the use of this particular vaccine. Okay, never accessible to the people getting the shot. Okay, now this warning, they are saying that they have put a warning document inside the box, okay, of the Covishield. But the thing is, the people who has taken the shot, okay, they have said that they did not get that particular warning because these boxes are with the vaccination authorities, and since these were mass drives, there was not much time to tell people about all these things. Neither any of the vaccination authority told about this, so masses were not aware about the side effects. That is what has been contested by the people who has actually suffered with the side effects. Okay, now there is this particular name, that is Vaxzevria. Okay, so that is basically a name of this vaccine, or can say other name of the vaccine, that is Covishield. Okay, so please remember that they might confuse you with this name, that is Vaxzevria. Okay, so that is about this particular article. There is this side effect which we have already discussed. There is this disease, that is thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome. Okay, so here you can say this is about the thrombocytopenia syndrome. Low number of platelets will be there, and ultimately that will impact the blood clotting. Normally between there should be between 1,50,000 to 4,50,000 platelets that should be present in the human body, but because of this particular you can say thrombocytopenia issue, there will be a platelet that is below 1,50,000 cells. Okay, so that is about this particular thing. And now when we are talking about platelets are involved in blood clotting, and that is why this particular side effect will impact the clotting situations. Okay, now moving ahead, last part of your discussion. Dumping occurs when the foreign companies sells its products in another country at a price A equal to the cost of production, B higher than the cost of production, C lower than the cost of production, and D unrelated to the cost of production. So this is the question about your dumping. So you can attempt this question and answer in the comment box. With that, I would like to take your leave. If you have not subscribed the channel, please subscribe the channel. Thank you.